It happens fast, faster than most people expect, because the moment a weapon is involved in a theft, everything shifts from a risky decision to a life-altering legal situation. And in the United States, being caught with a weapon during a theft doesn't just increase the seriousness of the crime, it completely transforms it into something the law treats as dangerous, violent, and deserving of severe punishment. What might have been a minor charge instantly becomes a felony, and from that point forward, the system responds in a way that can change your future permanently. Because now it's not just about what was taken, it's about the fear created, the threat implied, and the potential for harm that could have occurred in that moment. The first thing that usually happens is intervention, either by store security, law enforcement, or sometimes both. And if a weapon is discovered or even suspected, the response becomes immediate and intense, because officers are trained to treat these situations as high-risk encounters, which means you may be detained at gunpoint, handcuffed, and taken into custody without delay, even if no one was hurt, and even if the item involved was of low value. At this stage, every action and every word matters, because anything you say can be documented and later used in court, and many people make the mistake of trying to explain themselves in the moment, not realizing that the situation has already crossed into a serious criminal investigation. Once you are in custody, the legal process begins quickly, starting with booking, where your personal information is recorded, fingerprints are taken, and the official charges are filed, and in cases involving a weapon, those charges are almost always classified as a felony, often under armed robbery or aggravated theft laws depending on the exact circumstances. One of the most important factors here is how the weapon was used or perceived, because the law does not always require that the weapon be used physically. In many cases, simply having it visible or implying that you are armed is enough to meet the legal definition, especially if the victim felt threatened or believed they were in danger. This means that even if the weapon was never used, the charge can still carry the same weight as if it had been. After booking, you will typically appear before a judge for arraignment, where the charges are formally presented, and this is often the moment where the seriousness of the situation becomes undeniable, because bail may be set extremely high or denied altogether, particularly in cases involving firearms or prior criminal history, and the possibility of facing years in prison becomes very real. From there, the case moves into the pretrial phase, where prosecutors begin building their case using evidence such as surveillance footage, witness testimony, and any physical evidence recovered, while the defense works to challenge the charges, question the evidence, or negotiate a possible plea agreement. However, in cases involving weapons, prosecutors are often less willing to reduce charges, especially if the evidence clearly shows that a weapon was present or implied. One of the most critical aspects of being caught with a weapon during a theft is sentencing, because many states have strict laws that impose mandatory minimum sentences for crimes involving weapons, meaning that if you are convicted, the judge may have little or no discretion to reduce the punishment, and depending on the circumstances, this could result in years or even decades in prison. In federal cases, using or carrying a firearm during a violent crime can add additional time that must be served consecutively, not concurrently, which means the sentence for the weapon is added on top of the sentence for the theft itself, significantly increasing the total time behind bars. Another factor that surprises many people is that you don't have to be the one holding the weapon to face these charges, because under many laws, anyone involved in the crime can be held equally responsible, meaning that if you were part of the plan, acted as a lookout, or assisted in any way, you could still be charged with the same offense, and this expands the legal risk to everyone connected to the incident. The law focuses on shared intent and participation, not just who physically carried the weapon, which makes these situations far more serious than they may initially appear. If a conviction occurs, the consequences extend far beyond prison time, because a felony involving a weapon becomes a permanent part of your criminal record, affecting your ability to find employment, secure housing, or pursue certain opportunities, and in many cases, it also results in the loss of certain civil rights, including the right to possess firearms in the future. For non-citizens, the situation can be even more severe, as such convictions can lead to immigration consequences, including deportation or denial of legal status, making the impact not just legal, but deeply personal and long-lasting. The reality is that being caught with a weapon during a theft is one of those moments where everything changes instantly, because the law no longer sees the act as a simple mistake or a minor offense. It sees it as a serious threat to safety and order, and that perspective drives every part of the legal response, from arrest to sentencing. What may feel like a quick decision in the moment can turn into years of consequences that follow you long after the case is over, and that is why understanding what happens next is so important, because once a weapon is involved, the path forward becomes far more serious, far more complex, and far more difficult to reverse.